Welcome to a place where every secret slips into the light, and every betrayal leaves scars too deep to hide. This is where trust is tested, love unravels, and shocking truths tear families apart. Imagine finding a necklace in the pocket of the man you thought you knew better than anyone, a necklace that doesn't belong to you. From that single discovery, the world begins to crack open. Doubt spreads like fire, every smile, every excuse, every late night suddenly poisoned with suspicion. The unraveling brings whispers, lies, and betrayals closer than anyone dares to imagine. What once felt eternal shatters, revealing illusions carefully staged, and then comes the truth, hidden not with strangers, but tied to blood itself, a betrayal deeper than infidelity. But betrayal doesn't end in silence, it awakens revenge, a plan born from pain, sharpened by resolve, unstoppable until justice is served. The necklace slipped out of the pocket without warning, tumbling into sight like a truth too heavy to stay hidden. It wasn't just an ornament of metal and stone, it was a wound disguised in silver, glinting with secrets no words had yet spoken. At first glance, it seemed harmless, almost beautiful, the way light caught its delicate chain. But beauty can cut deeper than knives when it doesn't belong. The mind tried to make sense of it, tried to weave excuses where none could fit. Perhaps it was a surprise, a gift meant to be unwrapped with love and joy. That thought lingered only for a breath before the weight returned. This necklace was unfamiliar. It had never been worn, never been hinted at, never been part of whispered promises or gentle gestures. Its presence felt foreign, intrusive, like a stranger's shadow crossing the threshold of home. Fingers hesitated over it, trembling between hope and dread. The silence in the room grew louder than thunder, filled with memories of nights spent waiting, explanations offered too quickly, laughter that seemed forced in hindsight. Every excuse once accepted began to unravel with the cold shine of that chain. A heart that once felt secure now stumbled into doubt, realizing that trust may have been misplaced all along. The pocket where it rested wasn't just clothes, it was a vault of betrayal. Who did it belong to? Why was it hidden? The questions rose like smoke, choking the air, leaving no room for peace. The image of another face, another hand clasping this very necklace, tore through the mind. It wasn't just jewelry, it was a whisper from someone else's lips, a secret carried close to his heart, too close. Breath came shallow, as if even the air feared the truth. It wasn't just about what had been found, it was about what it meant. Trust, the very foundation of life together, had cracked in silence. The shine of the necklace burned brighter than any flame, but instead of warmth it carried only cold. It spoke of time unaccounted for, of smiles shared elsewhere, of nights spent in a world built on lies. There was no undoing what had been seen. No excuse could erase the image of that necklace resting where it never should have been. It wasn't proof written in words, but it was louder than any confession. Something sacred had been broken, and the sound of it echoed within like glass shattering across a floor. The necklace, small and delicate, now weighed heavier than gold, pulling every thought into the shadows where truth waited to be uncovered. And with that single discovery, everything changed forever. Questions burned hotter than fire, refusing to be silenced. The necklace had opened a door that could never be shut, and now every glance, every word, every memory carried a shadow. The thought tried to cling to reason. Maybe it was meant as a surprise. Maybe it was love prepared in secret. But if it were meant to be given, why hide it so carelessly? Why bury it in a pocket instead of placing it in open hands? The doubt crawled through the veins, slow but merciless, making the heart beat louder than the silence in the room. Every smile once treasured returned like a haunting. The warmth that seemed genuine now felt rehearsed, as if joy itself had been borrowed. Every late night claimed as work replayed in sharp detail, each excuse echoing too perfectly to be true. The hours once dismissed as sacrifice now looked like time stolen for another. And every moment once overlooked began to form a puzzle, one where the missing piece was the truth no one dared to speak. The mind tried to fight it, tried to paint over the cracks with trust, but suspicion bled through every corner. That necklace wasn't just an object. It was a symbol of someone else's presence. Was it meant for her? Had it been worn by another already? The thought of another hand reaching for him, another face smiling where smiles were never returned at home, pierced deeper than any blade. Nights of waiting replayed like cruel theater. The quiet dinners, the distracted glances at his phone, the sudden urgency to step outside when calls came, it all lined up too neatly. What once seemed harmless now screamed of betrayal. The excuses, the reassurances, the soft words spoken at the edge of sleep, all of them began to taste bitter, like poison sweetened with honey. The body carried the weight of unspoken truth, heavy and suffocating. Even the air felt different, thick with secrets. Trust had been a house built strong, yet doubt had lit a fire beneath it, and now every beam creaked with the threat of collapse. The necklace wasn't just metal. It was the spark that set everything ablaze. Every moment ahead seemed uncertain. Was there still loyalty hiding somewhere, or had it all been a game played with practiced ease? Was love ever real, or had it been a performance perfected for comfort and appearance? The questions had no answers, yet their silence was louder than any response. Doubt had taken root, and once it grows, it never lets go. It burrows deep, twisting every smile into suspicion, every touch into a lie, every promise into a threat. And with each passing thought, the fire only grew, burning away the last traces of peace. The necklace had planted its seed, but it was doubt that would make everything fall apart. Every detail began to sharpen into a clue, pieces of a puzzle that had always been there, but were only now coming into focus. The necklace had loosened the first thread, and once it began to unravel, nothing could hold the fabric together. Phone calls ended the moment footsteps entered a room, words clipped short, as if the walls themselves couldn't be trusted to hear. Laughter drifted through the closed door in hushed tones, but the second it was noticed, silence would fall heavy, almost staged. Unexplained absences piled up like unkept promises. Nights spent working late carried the faint smell of perfume not worn at home, subtle yet impossible to ignore. Receipts appeared for dinners never shared, charges for gifts that never arrived. The necklace had been the first object found, but it was not alone. There were shadows of more, hidden in places once thought safe. The truth had always been lingering, waiting for courage to finally see it. Even the way eyes shifted told stories. Guilt carried its own language. Quick glances away, hands fidgeting with pockets, a smile that came too easily and died too quickly. Every detail, every hesitation became evidence, stacking higher with each passing day. The puzzle was no longer scattered. It was taking shape, revealing a picture that burned with betrayal. The whispers were the hardest to bear, half-heard conversations caught in fragments, names spoken too softly to make sense, promises that did not belong to the life already shared. The voice that once comforted now sounded foreign, carrying warmth that was meant for someone else. That warmth used to be home, but now it had been stolen, redirected to a stranger unseen yet ever present. The unraveling left no corner untouched. Trust became suspicion, love became calculation, and silence became a weapon. Every movement was studied, every absence tracked, every word weighed for truth. Even sleep wasn't safe, because dreams replayed the necklace falling into view, over and over, like a prophecy refusing to be forgotten. It was clear that what had been found was not just jewelry, but a key to doors never meant to be opened, doors that guarded secrets buried deep beneath carefully crafted lies. Once turned, those doors revealed a world carefully hidden, where promises were broken not once, but over and over again in ways that left scars too deep to heal. The unraveling was no longer just suspicion. It was truth clawing its way into the light, no matter how tightly it had been buried. And with each clue uncovered, the life once believed in slipped further away, leaving only the weight of betrayal in its place. Love once felt eternal, steady as stone and bright as fire, but betrayal has a way of cracking even the strongest foundation. The necklace had already split the surface, but what came after shattered everything into sharp, unrecognizable pieces. What was once a home now felt like a stage, every word rehearsed, every touch practiced, every smile forced into place to keep the truth hidden. The warmth that once filled the air now chilled the skin, as if love itself had been an illusion carefully crafted to keep eyes blind. Every memory replayed itself in cruel detail, but this time through a different lens. The vacations filled with laughter now looked like distractions from secrets waiting in the background. The late night talks about forever suddenly sounded hollow, promises stitched together with lies so thin they tore apart with the faintest doubt. Even the way hands once intertwined felt different in hindsight, more like a performance meant to hold suspicion at bay than an act of devotion. There was no comfort left in looking back, only pain. Moments that should have been treasures now stood as proof of deceit. Birthdays, anniversaries, quiet evenings together, they were all tainted, contaminated by the possibility that someone else's name was lingering in his heart while those words of love were spoken. The thought carved deep, turning sweetness into poison. The illusion had been convincing. For years it had seemed flawless, so perfectly painted that no cracks could be seen. But once the surface split, everything beneath revealed itself, shadows stretching farther than ever imagined. The eyes that once promised truth now only reflected lies. The arms that once offered safety now felt like cages, trapping within a life built on betrayal. The cruelest part wasn't the lies themselves, but the skill with which they had been hidden. It wasn't just a betrayal of love, but a betrayal of trust, of faith, of every vulnerable moment ever shared. To give everything, only to realize it was never enough to hold loyalty, was a wound deeper than any blade could carve. And yet, in the silence after the illusion shattered, a strange clarity rose. Nothing would ever be the same. The stage had collapsed, the curtain ripped away, and all that was left was truth staring back, raw and merciless. The life once lived together was gone, not with a bang, but with the quiet fall of a necklace slipping from a pocket. The love that once felt eternal was dead, and in its place stood only betrayal, sharp and unforgettable. The necklace didn't belong to a stranger, and that truth carved deeper than any suspicion of another woman ever could. When it was finally recognized, the air turned heavier, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the betrayal long before it was discovered. It wasn't just jewelry bought in secrecy. It was tied to blood, to family, to the very circle that was supposed to be unbreakable. What had been feared as infidelity suddenly revealed itself as something far more poisonous, a betrayal that cut through generations, unraveling bonds thought to be sacred. There had always been small signs, details dismissed too quickly. Lingering glances during family gatherings, conversations that shifted abruptly when footsteps approached, laughter that carried an intimacy beyond what it should. They were subtle, easy to overlook when trust was still intact, but now they played back in the mind with cruel clarity. The necklace was not meant for a lover hidden in the shadows of another life. It was meant for someone closer, someone who shared the same bloodline. The weight of that realization was unbearable. Betrayal with a stranger wounds the heart, but betrayal within the family destroys the soul. Every promise ever spoken now seemed tainted by whispers exchanged in secret. Every celebration now revealed as a stage for lies. Every bond of trust shown to be nothing more than a fragile mask waiting to fall. The mind replayed moments that once seemed ordinary. the way eyes met across the table too often, the quick excuses to leave a room together, the strange silence that followed questions never truly answered. Each piece slid into place, forming an image that could no longer be denied. What was once suspicion of another woman became the horror of knowing the betrayal had been woven into the very fabric of family. It wasn't just love that had been stolen. It was loyalty, dignity, the sacred trust that binds families together. To find out that those closest had conspired in silence shattered everything. It wasn't merely about desire or temptation. It was about betrayal that reached into the marrow of life itself. Bonds that should have been shields were twisted into blades, cutting where protection should have been found. The necklace glistened not just with deceit, but with the cruel reminder that sometimes the deepest wounds are inflicted by those standing closest. The discovery wasn't just about broken vows. It was about a family web rotting from the inside, where loyalty no longer lived and betrayal thrived in its place. And in that moment, the truth was no longer hidden. It had always been there, waiting in silence, and now it stood uncovered, raw and merciless. Pain eventually burned itself into clarity, and clarity hardened into resolve. Betrayal had left no room for forgiveness, no space for compromise. What was broken could not be repaired, and what had been stolen could never be returned. The necklace, once an object of confusion, became a weapon of remembrance, a reminder that trust had been shattered and that silence was no longer an option. Every step forward became deliberate. Words spoken were measured, movements calculated, expressions carefully chosen. The performance had shifted. The stage no longer belonged to lies alone. Now it was about strategy, about letting betrayal think it was still hidden while the trap was quietly being set. Each late-night phone call was no longer a torment but a clue. Each unexplained absence a piece of evidence. The game that had been played in secret was now being played in return, only with sharper precision and colder intent. The mask of normalcy was worn like armor. Smiles were returned, dinners were shared, conversations carried on as though nothing had changed. But beneath it all, there was a storm building, quiet and unrelenting. No outburst, no confrontation, no desperate pleas for honesty, only silence laced with intent. That silence was more dangerous than rage because it carried with it patience, and patience was a weapon more devastating than any blade. The plan was simple but powerful: to let the lies reveal themselves, to let betrayal believe it still held the upper hand, and then to strip everything away in one final, merciless stroke. Every secret hidden away would be exposed, every deception dragged into light, every bond corrupted by betrayal torn apart, until nothing remained but the truth. There was a time when the thought of revenge would have seemed unthinkable. But betrayal transforms the heart in ways that cannot be undone. Pain doesn't just wound, it carves clarity, and clarity breeds strength. The necklace no longer glistened as a symbol of broken trust. It gleamed like the spark that set fire to an entire house of lies. Every move was now unstoppable, every step designed to dismantle the illusion piece by piece. It was not about shouting or begging for answers. It was about showing that betrayal carried consequences too heavy to bear. The kind of justice that doesn't scream but speaks in silence, cutting deeper than words ever could. And when the time came, there would be no turning back. What began with the fall of a necklace would end with the fall of everything it had exposed. You've just witnessed how a single necklace tore open a world of lies, exposing hidden betrayals, raw emotions, and devastating secrets. But this is only the beginning, because every ending here is born from revenge. If you were gripped by every twist, every shocking truth, and every crack in trust, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. More unforgettable stories are waiting, stories that will pull you deeper into the shadows of love, betrayal, and revenge. Don't miss what comes next.